It is an Ask Me Anything, hashtag AMA, which means you get to ask us anything. And you have sent in some amazing questions. Honestly, guys, you send in questions, especially some for Pat, who's going to be making an appearance with me today, that I don't even know the answers to. So we're going to find out. All right, so we are back, and I am going to be watching for comments here on my screen on the side. So if you have comments for us, if you're watching the hashtag, we're off to a stellar start. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. And I have a whole list of questions that some of you have submitted through DMs, you have submitted through email, you have submitted here in the group, on Messaging That Makes Money, on Facebook. I am going to be getting into it, and Pat is going to be joining me. So thank you, all of you who were like, yes, bring Pat. Well, we're bringing him. Okay, so he's going to be here. Right now, he's actually in our home, setting the kids up with snacks, and our children earn screen time every day. We don't give it to them for free. Before the pandemic, they never watched.
I'm reporting now from the front line of the
there he
family.
is.
Yeah, I'm on camera right now with you. I'm reporting
You
live.
are?
Yes, I am.
I don't see you. There you are.
Aha. So I have to wait for some monsters to wake up, and
Wake
I'm
up.
gonna come very soon on. Oh, I hear some movement now in the children's bedroom. It's not a good sign. So I'll be joining you very soon to answer some of the question. But in the
Sounds
meantime,
good. And in the meantime, and some of your questions were about work-life integration and how we work together without killing each other, and how we're sort of managing working and homeschooling or unschooling in our case full time. So I just wanted to say that our kids don't get, like, prior to COVID, they never ever watched screens. Like, we didn't give them any screen time at all. But with COVID, the fact that they're home with us full time, we don't have any domestic help or babysitting at all.
I have to set the videos.
They get half an hour to 45 minutes of screen time Monday through Friday. And so that's what Pat is setting up right now.
They're watching documentaries, so
they're watching documentaries.
Educational.
It's not, whatever. There's no judgment. If your kids watch more videos than that, that's fine. It's just this was a choice that we had deliberately made, and Pat's setting them up. So he's going to be joining me here in the office space. Somebody asked us somewhere, do you guys not live together? We do live together. We just have two condos side by side. So this is our workspace. So this is the office, and then we have a separate condo, which is where we live. So that's where Pat is right now with the kids. We're going to set them up, and then he's going to come over to the workspace. And he's going to only be here with us for a little while to answer the specific questions that you sent in for him. And then I'm going to take care of the other questions. So without much further ado, if anybody has, give me a big old, like, hey, if you're watching, if you have any questions or you can hear me, just give me a big old thumbs up, because I want to make sure that my sound is hot. And I am just going to go right into some questions here. So Melissa Jill asks, is Melissa on here? Let me see. If Melissa asks, I would love advice on creating videos that attract ideal clients. How do you get past the perfectionism holding me back, in her case, holding me back from creating them? What is the best way to use them on Facebook and YouTube? So the very first thing that I would say about creating videos is, and this is something we teach in week 4 of our program. So one of the things that I have found that has really helped me and has helped many of our clients get comfortable showing up on video. So the very first thing that you're going to do, obviously, is you're going to go into your own limiters and inhibitors, your own subconscious blocks to showing up and being seen. Because deep down, no matter what tactic you're applying, no matter what camera you use or lighting box you have or whatever that is, those are not the things that hold people back. You can make some pretty crappy videos and still get millions of views and bring in clients that are dying to work with you. That's never the issue. The issue is, are you showing up fully energetically? And the first piece of advice that I would give you, if you're not in my Messaging That Makes Money group, if you're watching this somewhere else, get in there on Facebook, Messaging That Makes Money, and go find in the video section my 5-step exercise to release subconscious blocks. Because many of you think that the issue is, I just need to be more motivated. So if you're feeling, unmotivated, or you're feeling really inhibited and you're like, oh God, I don't want to show up on camera. So like it takes so much energy from me. Or you're like, I don't have the right clothes. I don't have the right background. I don't have this. I don't have that. I had all of those same issues, believe it or not. I am, I still had all the same resistances when I first started doing video in this context, because I had to speak to and release and understand what my subconscious limiters were that made me scared to fully show up. It's different to do television when, yes, you're in front of millions of people, but you're talking about a story, or you're presenting the weather, or you're doing any number of things that are not deeply intricately linked to your purpose. Once you're doing things that are intricately linked to your purpose, there's a whole nother level of fear that opens up. So Melissa, if you're going through that and you're struggling to show up, the very first thing I would do is go do the subconscious blocks exercise, because that's going to take away that inhibitor, or you're going to be able to speak directly to that and create some safety. And then something I was sharing on our group coaching calls and in our mastery program, which is what our graduates do with us when they work with us on ongoing, is I was talking about how when I first started doing these lives, I was like, oh, what if I ramble? So I have all the same fears that you guys have, by the way. What if I ramble? What if I'm not succinct? What if I don't answer the right question? Or what if I have a brain fart and I just completely forget what I'm talking about? I have all those same fears. At the very beginning, the very first ones I did, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I didn't schedule them. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't pick a time where I was going to do them every single week. I just kind of like eased my way into it. I kind of oozed into it, and I just went live. I turned my camera on and I was like, here's my topic for the day. I'm going to do this. Whoever comes live. If I hate it, I'll delete it. And then worst case, I'll just deal with comments and questions and whatnot after. Does that make sense? So the first couple of ones that I did, I was like, I want to feel out the process. I want to suss out the process. Meanwhile, at the same time, I was also doing the same subconscious blocks exercise that I have you guys do. I was working with our mindset team. So I do the same work that all of our students do. So I worked with our mindset team around showing up. One of you, Jessica, or somebody else had a question
Can I mention
about
something?
Facebook, how you grew the Facebook group. Yeah, Pat's going to come in for a second. I'm going to speak to exactly how I grew this Facebook group and how we have so much engagement and so on. But it had everything to do with doing the subconscious blocks exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only once I started being really allowing myself, I had internal permission that I was like, okay, we're going to pick a time. We're going to do this every single week, and I'm going to announce it. Go ahead.
I just want to add something, is that there's so many different formats that exist right now that if one doesn't suit you, there's so many different apps, so many different devices, so many different platforms that you could use easily for not that much money that could support whatever fits what is the most or the easiest way that you could actually start to show up on videos. And so there's no like the mindset part is obviously a very important thing that you have to resolve before you come on camera, but just know that like selfie sticks and easy apps to like record. There's native apps right now on iPhones that just allows you to edit like straight from your phone. So it's so easy right now in these days that there's no, I mean, it's easier than it ever was to do videos. All right, that's it. That's what I want to say.
And to speak to the piece where you're like, well, how do I make these videos? Making videos is one part of it. How do I make them compelling for my audience? I have a whole bunch of trainings specifically on audience and specifically on how to choose your ideal client and all of those things in the Facebook group. So go watch those trainings, and you'll recognize this bad boy where I talk about the continuum and figuring out where on the continuum your ideal client lives so that you can speak directly to where they're at right now. And that's a huge part of what you're going to be using. All right, let's move on to another question. Let's see. What do we have here? Jyoti has a great question. So she says, my question is, how much content do you put on Facebook Lives or in podcasts versus in your actual program? So you'll notice that we're extremely generous here with the content that I've created for you for free. So we have 2 tiers in our business. So, I've often spoken to people where we're like, I think I need to have like 3 different tiers or 4 different tiers and offerings. And, I have my like beginner level program and then my mid-level program and then my mastery, like my advanced program. We have 2 programs, people. We have advanced, as in, and you don't have to be that advanced business wise, but you have to be really clear in terms of what your expertise is. Once you know that you really have an expertise and you're like, I've just never been online, you're a total beginner, but that's cool. So we have our advanced kind of our premium program, but we have multiple layers of support. We have a really robust 8-week intensive, and we have free. Those are the two tiers of our program, and we have nothing in between. So we don't do like, a $297 program or a $997 or a $4,000. Like, we don't do any of those tiers. We just have like super premium and free. So what we do is, I always think about what is the content that I can create that does two things. One, it makes clients more ready to work with me. They recognize their problems better. They understand their problems better. They understand how their problems are affecting their lives. They understand how their problems are interconnected. They also understand what the frick their actual problem is, because 9 times out of 10, the people who come to work with us come to us because they've been stuck for years and sometimes even decades fixing the wrong problems. And one thing that we're very, very good at Impact with Influence is we're consummate diagnosticians. We can see what the right problem is. We can immediately go to like, this is your actual problem. All the tactics in the world aren't going to fix it if you don't fix this first. And then now you know what to fix. And when you fix it in the right things at the right order, that's when you take off. So what we look at is, what are the things that will help people be more ready to work with us? What will prove to people? I'm a huge believer in showing and not telling. That's the number one rule of good storytelling. I've been a storyteller my whole life. How do you show people that you've got the goods? We teach our clients how to describe what they do in a way that doesn't give away the farm, but at the same time really clearly demonstrates that they have the ability to solve the problem and that they have a deep understanding, deeper than anybody else out there. They really get this problem in a way that nobody else seems to do, right? So we teach, those are the two ways that we do it. We first get really, really clear. How do I demonstrate my ability? And then the second thing is, how do I give you content that's going to make you, if you don't already work with us, more ready, in a better position, better educated about what we do and how we do it, and more hungry for it than you ever were before you got to know us. Does that make sense? So that's how I separate things. Everything else stays in the program. So all the detailed all the actual process, a huge part of our magic is the level of support that we provide. So as you're going through the program, you have people kind of looking over your work and be like, there's a big gap here. You didn't understand this part. You think you're doing it, but you're not. Here's a little adjustment. Here's what this looks like. Here's what this is meant to do. There are all of those layers of support. Plus, we're looking at, what's your mindset? What's your limiting belief? What's your big fear? What's coming up for you? Why are you frozen? All of those different layers. That's why our program works so dang well. That's in the program. That doesn't happen here for free. Does that make sense? So those are the ways that we separate those two things. All right, next question. Tanisha asks, what is your strategy for building this Facebook group? I love this question because you're going to think, oh, she's going to talk about ads, or she's going to talk about how to do whatever. Jaya's saying that we can't hear Pat well. Uh-oh. Pat, we have a problem here. All right. So yeah, this is it. So Pat, you're gonna have to come here and work with me right here. So
I resolved the issue, I think. Perfect. Yeah.
So Tanisha was saying how to grow it. I'm so glad you're gonna address it. Cool. So one of the things that everybody thinks is, I know you want the answer to be like, oh, just run some ads or go post on Instagram or send an email. All of those things are valid, by the way. I do all of those things. I will be very honest with you. I don't think that I'm a super genius at all at growing or promoting a Facebook group. I mean, this group doesn't exactly have 200,000 members in it. It doesn't. But you know what? We have people who are committed. We have a community that really cares. If you look at the quality of the posts in this group, they're not your typical lame ass, whiny, complainy, distracting, meme filled. This is not that group. So let me tell you the truth about this, Tanisha, because it's not about, again, you think it's about strategy. It's not about strategy. Here was my issue before I actually committed to this Facebook group, because I am committed energetically to this Facebook group, which is why the group supports me. I support the group and we're growing together. Before I had made that energetic commitment, And I was actually researching, what tactics should I use to grow this group. I realized that I had a subconscious limiter. I did the same exercise as you do. Go look in the video section. Same exercise. This is how I do it for myself. That's why I know it works. Okay, so what I did was I realized that I had a major inhibitor. I was very disappointed by the quality of most groups. I found most groups to be extremely lame. I had just like a lot of frustration or lack of connection with people, the way that people showed up in most groups. So I was also like, do I really want a group where everybody's gonna like ask lame questions or be like, hey, who's ready to kill Monday? And then post like motivational memes and shit. Like, I'm not moved by any of that. I don't find any of that compelling. I was like, if I'm bored to tears in my own group, like, what is the effing point anyhow, right? So I couldn't do it. So what I also had, interestingly, a subconscious block that showed up was I had this story, so a limiting belief that I'm not good at building community. True story. Until very recently, I had this limiting belief that I'm not good at building community because I believed that. I showed up that way, and guess what I got as reality? Big surprise. I know that's how limiting beliefs work. So because I was like, and then we peeled back the layers. So I did the subconscious blocks exercise, and I also worked with David one-on-one in a mindset session to speak directly to this point. So some of the things that we discovered were, I was scared. I was like, I'm not good at small talk. So I'm like, I'm not good at small talk. I'm never the guy I'm super social. I love people, but I cannot do the, like, how's the weather? I don't care. I just don't. Right? I don't care about a lot of things that occupy a lot of space in people's minds. I just don't. I don't like very divisive political conversations. Like, I'm not into any of those things. I don't like whining. I don't like gossip. So I was like, how do I relate to other human beings when this is how most people relate? And I don't feel like I want to have any part of that. That was my issue. I was looking at my friendships, like, this is a big deal, right? So I was noticing how most of my friendships are virtual, because most of the people that I'm close to, that I love dearly, don't live in my city. It's just, that's the nature of my family lives out of town. Like, it's just how my life has ended up being. And so, and especially since we run an online company, it's not like I'm going into an office where every so often, like, I have local friendships, but they're not the deep kind. So another part of it was also like, I have a really hard time, consistently maintaining long distance relationships, especially as a mom. You've seen what my schedule is like. My schedule is not typical at all. So like texting people at the right time or scheduling time for calls and like all of those things were really difficult for me. So I had to sit with the depth of my shame, because that's what it was. I had shame around the fact that I'm maybe not a very good friend, and I'm maybe not a very good daughter or sister or whatever, and that I'm not good at maintaining those relationships. So what I didn't want to do is that I didn't want to start a whole bunch of new relationships in a group, because I'm like, I'm already sucking at the important ones. I don't fucking want to start a whole bunch of like acquaintanceships when I don't have the energy to support my deep friendships. So I did a lot of release around that. I love that I did this, and I love that it came up, because I have now gone and strengthened my deeper relationships. And then I decided I'm going to just change the way I sat with it. I felt my feelings. I let them go. This is a process we teach in our program. I did the self-hypnosis for myself. And then I was like, you know what? It's my group. It's my house. I love having people over. I would never talk about the weather when they came over. Like, I talk about real things. I was like, what if we had a group where we talk about real things? And what is the best way to create a community that is what you want it to be? There are two things you do. One, you lead by example. Duh, I talk about this all the time. I was like, I already know how to do this. I always lead by example anyway. I just thought that example was inappropriate in this context. And I started to see that it wasn't. It was actually exactly what was required. So I was like, oh, I just have to show up as me. I just have to have the conversations I'm interested in. And hopefully other people will be. And if they aren't, then that's cool. We will shape the group to be that and nothing else. And then the second part is just be present for the people that are there the way that you would want them to be present for you. And I think it was Reina on one of our recent group calls in our Impact with Influence program, we were talking about this and I was like, don't worry. She asked a question about Facebook groups too. And I was like, don't worry about starting a group of people that you want to sell to, which is what most people will tell you to do, right? They're like, go start people, like put your ideal clients in it. And you're thinking, okay, these are people that I need to sell to, which means they have to be aligned with my product or some shit. I don't know, whatever. I don't know how to do that. I personally do not know how to do that. So what I do instead is I think of, I want to make a group full of people that I would want to hang out with. These are a group of people that I would want to have deep conversations with. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And then we have deep conversations. And that is what we do in this group. Like, look around, look at the videos, look at the content. Like, this isn't Ask Me Anything. Usually it's like light and fluffy. And I don't know how to be light and fluffy. This is how I know to be. And that's going to work for some people. And it is not going to work for others. But this is the place that this lives. So hopefully that answers that question. It's not a tactical answer, but it's when you energetically commit, honestly, like our numbers just started to go up like that. People are inviting friends in, people from our list are coming over. Sometimes I'll post on my Insta stories and stuff. And then they just like, people come in and when I go on podcasts or, we run Facebook ads. So Facebook ads, when people ask questions in the comments, you'll notice even the quality of questions in our comments it's great quality. I'm so interested in quality conversation. Like, that has got to be my love language. Quality conversation is my thing. So when people ask good questions, I'm like, hey, we're having a question just like, I love this question. I'm going to create a training just about this in my Facebook group. And so we send people from our ads in the comments to the Facebook group. Is this like, 10,000 people joining a day? No, it's very gradual, but it's very consistent, and holy hell, the quality is fantastic. So, I mean, here you are, right? You're my people. So I'm not worried about numbers. I've never been the person who's like, I need to be an influencer and have like 700 million people follow me. I'm like, no, I would rather have the 7 people who are really into what I'm into have a conversation with me. We're in this together. I don't know who's following. Like, I don't think of you as followers, if that makes any sense. We're a team. Does that make sense? I'm all about ecosystem. So here we go. No Mickey Mouse shit. Imagine. Yes, exactly. That's what Raina says. Look who's here.
I so don't like it.
That is so uncomfortable on camera. It's so funny.
I don't like to be on this.
Should I get taller? You have to get shorter. Taller, shorter, taller, shorter. Okay. This is what, want to know what we do all day? This is what we do. Okay, so yeah, here we go. So we have, ready?
Can we look at?
We can do that.
No, but I mean, can we have the image?
Like, you're right there.
No, but the notes are, but it's not.
No, there's no images. Okay. Here it is. So.
There's no images.
There's no images. So Jen asked the question, we know a little about your why. My why, i.e. my why. What's Pat's why? What's your why?
Jesus Christ! Like,
why?
Like that's how you start with your guest. Like you go straight
You're
for.
My guest.
Well, I am your guest.
You're my bitch.
No,
I'm just kidding.
My God, that is not okay.
Raina's like, Pat.
What's my why? My
Give
why.
him some love.
My why has changed a lot over the years. My why has. My why is sometimes changing like in a day. It's sometimes
sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, fame,
gummies don't count.
Rock and roll.
Gummies don't count.
Caramels. So ice baths. I think at first I was feeling protective of us and of you, and I was seeing that you were doing all of those entrepreneurial. That's a nice word to use. Okay,
let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you the truth about how that section of our life went down. Yeah. So I was coming off of 2 years of mat leave. I was spending a whole bunch of money on coaching programs and courses and things that I needed to learn. I needed to learn the tech of how to take my expertise online. I had this vision. I had a hard time explaining the vision to people at the time because I was still figuring out the details of it. And I had no clue about the why. I had no clue about the how. The how was the part where I was like, gotta buy some shit so I can figure out the how. The what was getting clearer and clearer, and the why was crystal clear. I was like, I need to do something that absolutely matters to me every freaking day. Because when I was on 2 years of maternity leave unpaid, I did work every damn day and night that absolutely mattered to me. And I just couldn't go back to anything less than that. And when Pat and I were having those conversations, poor Pat was working full time. His income was actually supporting us. And it was really tight. Like I used to pack my coffees to go on play dates with other moms from home because I didn't have money to spend on Starbucks.
So my first impulse, my first why was to make sure that things were not getting completely out of hands, which they obviously went out of hand. As
in the best way.
Yes. But I mean, we started like with like a sling. You started with a sling.
That's true.
Thing.
So right before I went online, I actually had a completely failed business. Like I had just failed at something that I had convinced everybody was my thing.
It was not a failed business. It was just that we didn't. I mean,
it never got past the friends and family stage, right?
Like you didn't pursue it.
I wanted to make baby carriers, and I made some, and I even started to like bulk produce them. But don't worry about it.
Okay.
Oops. Don't look at my desk. Don't look at
my
my desk.
God.
It'll make your eyes bleed. Pat,
it's so anxiety inducing.
I know. Pat is like super organized. His desk is really neat and mine is like.
So you were talking about the business that you didn't pursue.
Yes. So I had the sling thing, and my dad was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to support you." And he brought in a whole bunch of fabric from India when he came in, and I turned it into slings, and I sold some to friends and family, and then I sold some to like friends of friends.
The slings were comfortable.
And they were great, but they never got past a certain.
Because it's like items and manufacturing is really a whole different.
And most importantly, I loved the idea of it, but I also didn't want to take any risk. And I remember interviewing a friend of mine, a local acquaintance.
That's my real height.
He's taller than I am. Hot. Anyway, so you're so weird.
What?
Why are you squatting in this bizarre way?
Squatting. I'm doing my thing.
We could just do this.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Framing, it bothers him. Anyway, so I went and had coffee.
With the microphone. I went and had coffee. All my equipment.
I went and had coffee with this friend who ran a very successful cloth diaper company. So same audience, also challenges with manufacturing, marketing to the same group of people, etc. And she was like, and I was like, yeah, but I don't really want to get into any debt to take this off the ground. And she looked at me and she was just like, wait, so you want everybody else to take a risk, spend their money on your product, but you're not in any way, shape, or form going to take a risk? And I was like, yeah. And I thought that was a great idea. So I wanted basically all of the rewards of a giant, like fast-growing company without any of the risk. And she was like, yeah, okay, you let me know when that works for you. And she was like, I'll see you later. Check, please.
So that was the initial thing. And then Baby Got a Book, when you got online, I started to be roped in because I know how to
that is our tech.
Do some editing, and then you also you sick like infusion stuff onto me.
That's right.
Also straight from the beginning.
You slept through the first training.
Yes, I did.
You did.
I did sleep from the first. But now look at me.
But now look at you.
But now look at me. Who's laughing now? And so I guess the why has changed because also I have evolved to find that the content and the position. I mean, I'm doing. There's another question about what I'm doing.
What do you do? What is Pat? Jamie wanted to know what Pat
I'm
does.
doing so as in I'm doing so much and so different level about what we're doing in terms of maintenance and in terms of banking and in terms of like
everything like
bookkeeping and
Pat
team management.
Pat manages our team. Pat kind of is our IT department. So if something's not working, I'm like, I can't print this thing. I call Pat.
This is happening every 2 days, by the way.
Roughly.
Yeah. Never learned anything about that.
You know what? I bought the printer. That's my job. I buy the printer.
You bought 2 printers and none of them you can operate.
This is true.
Yep.
But you know what? That's what visionaries do. So part of the reason that this works so well, and part of the reason that we're the dream team is, and Anita had a question about how did you give yourself permission to take the leap towards entrepreneurship? So anybody else? Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur. I have the luck of being the entrepreneur where I'm taking some places that belongs to me. I used to take all the places that didn't belong to me at first, and now we I can identify much more what I want to be doing. And one of the things that I want to be doing is mostly like more videos and more of the branding component, and all of that is
The
something.
visuals.
The visual. I like the team management, and I like to bring up.
He likes to boss people around.
I like to boss people around, but I also like to direct them at the right place, and to answer their question and make things work. Like, that's something that I really like. I like to make things work. So if I have a problem, if there's something that's an issue, I will sit and I will work and I will identify what is not working, whether it's a funnel, whether it's an integration, whether it's a video thing, whether it's an email, maybe it's a relationship thing that we have with someone. And then I like to fix them. And that's a big trap, because you could end up fixing all of the issues that you have. And that's also a huge issue. You don't want to be fixing everything. Once you are assigned a role that's wide, the problem is to get it to narrow it. And that's another question that we have.
And actually you brought up something interesting that I would want to share with folks. So Pat is, so if you kind of look at the breakdown of what we have.
My hair, amazing today.
Really
fantastic. It's a good day to
his hair
be live.
Always looks good, but he never believes me.
That's my COVID hair.
His hair looks great.
That's my
it's really grown out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, so I'm kind of the CEO.
No, wait. We need to talk now.
I'm kind of the CEO. I'm the visionary. I'm the person who sees where things are going. Pat is.
Sorry.
Pat is the comedic relief.
No.
I'm the guy who sees where things are going. I invent things. I create, like, it comes out of me. I'm the content
generator,
person.
creator.
But I'm also like, I have this driving force for where I'm going. And the more I remove fear, the more I work on self-acceptance and self-trust, the more of this power just flows through me. And now it really is effortless. And at the beginning, it really wasn't. But I'll save that story for another day, because, we have a lot of questions to get to. But what Pat does that's really great and that's amazing on a team is he's a COO. He's like an operations guy. He thinks in production terms. And I've shared a post in the Facebook group. It's a Huffington Post article I wrote. So if you Google Huffington Post and my name, Geeta Nadkarni, you will find this article. It's about the two.
What's your name?
Shush.
How do you write?
Just call me
How many
Babu.
times I spell your name?
Oh my God, I know, right? Just like, it's the 2 meetings that will save both your life and your marriage. And we had to learn how to have the vision meeting and the operations meeting separately, because otherwise we just used to argue so much. And we both felt so unappreciated. We both felt like our skill was not, there was no room for our gift on the team. And that was a really difficult place for us to be. Man, how many times did we fire each other? Like, a lot. We fired each other.
I fired you more than. Well, I fired myself more than.
Yeah, I quit.
I don't know, more than.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Anyway, so believe me, this has not all been like roses and unicorns by any means, but it has been an amazing growth opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we learned how to, now what we see is Pat, I have to be careful to rope Pat in, or hold him back, because he's a pit bull. Like, he can, when he sees something that needs fixing, he is so dependable. He is so all in. He will have lists. It's in Asana, it's in Slack. There are 1,700 reminders. He will make sure that gets done. And if it drags on, I know it drains his energy. So part of my job as the visionary is to make sure that we're fixing the right problems. I'm much more sanguine. I'm much more laissez-faire. So I'm
Oh, sanguine.
It's true.
Stealing our words in French all the time.
I'm not stealing your words.
You are stealing our.
He's French, I'm English, so he thinks that we.
Sanguine.
Anyway. Yes.
Anyhow.
Yes. We use it better.
Yeah.
And more often, quite frankly. So I feel like we have dibs. Anyway, but all this to say, yes, you do need a Pat, Melissa. That is absolutely true. You do.
No, but it's not everyone who has a chance to be having someone that works so close with someone. And there was someone who asked a question about processes and delegation.
Jamie.
Delegation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what was the question again? Do you remember?
So the question was,
we're going
what does Pat do on the team? And then lots of you actually wanted to ask, what do we do in-house and what do we outsource? And then what are tips on delegation? Those were the questions.
Well, the first thing is that right now what I do is it's pretty vast, because I'm mostly the connection with the real side of our business, which is all about bookkeeping, accounting. I'm trying to also be here to I have a scanning. There's a role.
He's the interface between sort of me.
Yes.
So I have of everybody on the company, I have the smallest number of tasks that I do. And really, if you ask me, what is the one thing that I do? I coach. That's what I do. My content is coaching content. My lives are coaching. My group calls are coaching. My client interactions are coaching. My help desk tickets are coaching. Everything that I do basically boils down to coaching. That is what I do. I don't do anything else.
Oh.
Sorry. And sometimes I'm sorry. And sometimes I, like some of that coaching is to myself, right? As I grow as a CEO, as I'm managing complexity that I don't know how to manage, I'm also like managing my own internal blocks and patterns and worries and fears and all of that stuff. So I coach myself, I coach the team, and I coach our clients and you guys that don't work with us yet. That's what I do. Now that leaves a lot of stuff on the table. And those of you who are solopreneurs at this point, just know we came from there. So we've gotten to this place. Now we run a 7-figure business. We have a team. Now at this point, I do a very small number of things, but I started when I had no money and no team. I started with a very clear sense of what my strengths were. I got very clear about what my strengths were. So here's a framework that I will teach you really, really quickly. And I don't have time to get into the details of this, but here it is real quick. And we can do a separate live on this if you guys are interested. So let me know in the comments. You have to pick the things that you are good at, that are extremely important in your business. What are you good at? Extremely important, and that you love. It has to be all three, not just two of these things. There are many tasks that you're good at that are important, but you really don't love. There are things that you love that you're good at, but that are not really important. Those don't count. You have to figure out what are the handful of tasks that meet all these three categories. And then once you know that, you put that on a freaking, I have Post-its right here. I have a Post-it that's on my computer at all times. And those are the tasks that I always do first. And then I do everything that falls outside of that. And obviously that's a long list at first when there's only one of you, or one or you and a VA or something like that. But because I'm clear about where I want to go and I'm clear about which pieces I want to cut out, I'm able to do that more effectively. So what Pat is on our team is he's an intrapreneur, which means he operates with the mentality of an entrepreneur, but within the structure of a company that somebody else has built. So you want to basically magnetize as many intrapreneurs as you can get, because you don't want employees. People with an employee mentality are people who are like, you give them a list of things to do, they go do the things, they're robots, they don't think outside the box. Pat is not that guy at all. Like, honestly, it
depends on the tasks.
But the last, for example.
But I like in the dynamic of you focusing on what you want to do, we didn't always have the people to delegate the tasks.
Correct.
So at some point,
yes,
when I first joined, I was doing a lot of things that I didn't want to do, but I know that I needed to do them for us to be able to grow and continue what we're doing. Now we are at a point where we could start focusing and I could start to delegate more and more of the things that I don't want to be doing on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And in terms of processes, I know that Renee is asking about specific on the tasks and delegation.
Tasks and delegation, yeah.
I think that the one insight that I would have to share about that is that you have to understand clarity is king. So if you have a process that you want to delegate, you have to make sure that you do it, or that you could walk the path of doing it before you delegate it to someone else. Because if you say to someone, take something from that and then move it there, and then you might not even have all of the ropes to make it work, and you don't even have all of the pathways to make it work. And then you're just thinking, oh yeah, it's gonna work. That person will understand. You need to at least have a real good background sense of what you're trying to do, and to be able to explain it concretely. And then when you pass it on, you could see if it's done well, if it needs improving, and if you could explain it in a more clearer way.
And that's a big piece, because, and I will tell you this, we signed on to Infusionsoft, which is an email marketing and a client relationship management tool. So people call it Confusionsoft. People in the industry who've been in the industry way longer than me call it Confusionsoft, because it is one of those platforms that can do everything, like, and give you a foot massage, but it is also clunky AF.
Never got a foot massage from Confusionsoft, but yes.
Brain massage.
Yes.
But yeah, but it's complex, and the interface is not pretty, and it's not necessarily user friendly, but it's very robust.
Yes.
It's both complex and robust.
Yes.
And I remember that I sat through the full training, I sat and I took notes, and and I'm a Luddite. Like, Pat teases me all the time that I'm like a technophobe, and I'm not. I'm not a technophobe.
Technology is Gita-phobic. I think that's the other way around.
I'm not a naturally, like, I'm not drawn to like high tech, or like, I don't like when the latest app comes out, Pat's like, oh my God, an app. And I'm like, that's nice. Okay. Yes, I'm really interested. Tell me.
And then you go into active service.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, this is my active service.
This is my active service
that's
face. Right. Tell me. I'm interested.
So just so you know, like, in my family, my birth family, I was the person who was the least interested in computers. I never played video games. This was not my natural inclination. But when I understood what my why was, and I understood what this portal represented to me, I was like, man, I am all in. I'm going to embrace you. And all my resistance to it melted away. Mm-hmm. So to this day, I barely touch Infusionsoft anymore, but I am super literate. I'm fluent in Infusionsoft. So if somebody comes to me and says, I don't know how to do that, I'll be like, go call support. They know how to do it. This is totally doable. Go do it. So I know no one can fool me or kind of like slip some bullshit under the rug. And, especially now that we work with more people, Pat is also super literate, and I trust his judgment. So now it helps us hire the right people because we know what we're doing. So as you get higher, you get more advanced, and your tasks kind of narrow. You're going to have to hire people that do things that you literally don't know how to do. And that is normal. But at the beginning, when your business is simple, you want to make sure that at least the most important pieces, you are literate enough in how they do it. So for example, I don't run our Facebook ads at all. We have a head of marketing inside our company. We don't outsource it. We've insourced it. We've hired somebody who runs them for us. But I know how to read the metrics. I can log in at any time, and I know how the things work. I know what pieces to look for. I know when the numbers are off. I'll be like, I don't like those numbers, and then we can talk about it and make informed decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big deal.
You need to be able to. You owe that not decency, but you owe that to the person that you're delegating the task to. I mean, someone on our team might be like, okay, so go research that. That's also possible to ask someone to research it. But if you want to delegate a task, you need to know like 90% of it or 95% of it to be able to really see how the process is. Yeah,
at first. And here's the other thing that I would say about that, which is really interesting also, is that when you're first outsourcing something, it is going to be very simple. The task that you want to do is like the parameters of it are going to be relatively simple. As you hire the right people, that task may become very complex to the point where now you're like I look at the way our Facebook ads are built. I wouldn't know how to do that from scratch. Like, now we teach it in the program, and my CMO actually teaches this to our clients, and he is the best of the best. Like, that's why we hired him. He really is. Like, we've worked with a lot of people. We've outsourced this. We've, worked with so many different, and we've paid a lot of money to learn it and to hire it out. And this guy is the shiz. But the reason that this works so well, I wouldn't know how to build all of this from scratch now, but we're in a position where you get to a place where you know enough that while talking to someone, you're like, this person knows what they're doing. This person really has the goods. That's going to come with time. That's going to come with experience. So are you going to be able to hire an Abdullah right from the very beginning? Probably not. I didn't either, right? I only met him when I was ready to meet him. Nomita asked, how do you find entrepreneurs?
You have to marry them.
You have to marry them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
French Canadians. Okay. Do you have one last question?
I have one last question for you. Okay, let me see.
Answer.
Does anybody have one last question for Pat before he has to go, because he has to go mind the kids? And I have other questions that I'm going to be answering for you guys. Let's see. I'm
going to have to listen to your call. Also.
Yes. How many? I think it was really about the leap into entrepreneurship and sort of how we came from a very different.
We came with a perfect background. I was the one who was behind the scene, and she was the one who was in front
on camera.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the producing relationship when we met, that was exactly what we were already doing, like me giving her orders.
That's not how that went. That's what Pat tells himself, yeah.
And then, but you know, it shows a lot about who we are. I'm gonna go back on the other side. Cool. You need to put your headphone because you need to be able to hear me if I ever have to come back like on a duplex. And all right. I'll talk to you. Cool.
It's just you and me now. I can tell you all. I can tell you the whole truth. All right. So I need to learn how to do everything so I can delegate properly. You don't have to learn everything, Reina. You have to learn the important things. Learning everything is a fool's errand. You don't need to know all the things. And you don't, I mean, I look at the way, so a huge part, the thing that you most need to learn, here's the bottom line of all of it. And you're going to love this, Reina, I promise. You need to learn you. You need to learn what your strengths are. You need to learn where the gaps are. So I don't think of them as weaknesses. I just think of them as gaps, right? These are the things that and it's not just that you don't know how to do them. You may know how to do them really well, but they may drain you of energy as opposed to feeding you energy. The clearer you get on what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and what your gaps are, the more you're going to be like, I need somebody who thinks like this. And Nomita asked, how do you find entrepreneurs? How do you hire the right people? And I have a really weird way that I think about this because I don't have a specific, I do have a process that we follow. But the real answer to that, even before, me and mindset versus tactics, right? The first thing that I do is I get clarity on what is it that I'm looking for? How is it that I want to feel? What are the specifics of this task that are the most important? Because if I know what that is, I'm not going to cram everything in the kitchen sink into a job description, right? So I get crystal clear and I have a process that I follow. I actually created my own tools to do this on paper where I'm just like, I'm going to fill out a template for this that I'm going to do that. So that helps me understand exactly what it is I'm looking for. And then I just set my intention and I put kind of the call out to the universe and then I listen. And every single time without fail, the right person will just show up on my radar. And sometimes they find me, sometimes they come and work with us as a client first, and then they end up joining our team. Like it's kind of magic the way that it has evolved. But the big piece of it is you have to be able to recognize it when it shows up. And the best way to do that is to know yourself. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but that's the truth of it. That's the way that I understand. Renee says, oh my God, let me just bring this forward here so I can read it properly. I'd love to understand more about the producer role. So Renee, the best way, the short answer to that, since we still have so many questions that were sent in before to go through, you need to go and look through the group. I have shared a link. And somebody can put this in the chat. If anybody can just go Google Huffington Post, Geeta Nadkarni, and go find the two. It's a Weirdo Wednesday that I posted. So if you want to look through the hashtag Weirdo Wednesday in the Facebook group, you'll find it. And it's the 2 meetings that can save your marriage and your business. And I talk about what the 2 roles are in the company and how your brain works and basically what it feels like, the 2 different roles. That really helps. So that will give you kind of a short answer. And then if you want more detail, then I can go and do a separate live about it. But it's a long answer. So I don't know if we have time for that today. So let's look at this. Reina asked a great question. I loved this question. What do you struggle with the most and who do you go to for help? So I was like, wow, talk about like bring in the goods, right? So not a tactical question. Tell me if you want my answer to this question or do you want my answer to how did you develop your string of emails, content and format? Do you want a tactical question? Tell me quickly in the chat which one you want. Do you want like what my like weaknesses or what my like what did you call it? What do I struggle with? My struggles personally, or do you want to know like tactical messaging, email, content stuff? You tell me what you want. I'm waiting for you guys to weigh in the chat. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to answer Leslie's question. How many hours do you work a week? I have an ideal number of hours, but that is not how much I work now. LOL. Okay, so and she asks also, what tasks do you outsource? So the very beginning, and I wrote an article in Entrepreneur Magazine on this. I wrote an article in Entrepreneur Magazine on this. So you can Google entrepreneur.com and Geeta Nadkarni, and you'll see kind of a list of the articles I wrote. How hiring a VA forget now exactly what the title was, but it was about hiring my first VA. So what do I outsource? The first thing that I did when I was back in the day when I had no money, living off of one income where I didn't have coffee out because that's how tight money was. I was like, I'm going to hire my first VA because I fucking need structural support. Because I know that I am an ideas generator. I have a lot of, look at me. I have a lot of energy when I'm excited about something. I can go all in. I can move mountains. But the problem is that I'm also, sometimes I can get that momentum can kind of like freak me out, and then I get like scared. And and back in the day, I did not have a process to manage that. I do have a process to manage that now. Big surprise. Now I have a 7-figure business because I have a process to manage it. Duh. But at the time I didn't, right? I was coming from a different place. And so I knew that I needed somebody with structure brain, kind of like Pat's brain, like somebody who thinks in task lists, who has a lot of energy for follow through, who has checklists and processes and thinks about like what are the different steps. They see obstacles where all I see is opportunity. Like that's me. I see opportunity everywhere I go. So I hired my first VA before I actually had the money to pay her. And I was like just trusting the universe that the money would show up. And of course it did. But I was like, man, I worked my ass off back in the day. But even to this day with COVID, so just so you understand the context of this, prior to COVID, I worked probably 35 hours a week. Okay. I only work Monday through Friday. I don't work on the weekends, barring like if we're on a big project or there's some kind of emergency. Yes, maybe I would work on the weekend. But 9 times out of 10, I like most weeks, 52 weeks a year, I don't work weekends. I don't even check my Slack. I don't often check my email. I just like turn my phone off. And sometimes I'll have my phone at the bottom of my purse and I'll be out biking with my kids. And I just don't work on the weekends ever. One thing I did very early on in this process is I started to block off time on Friday afternoons to think about my business as opposed to be in it doing all the tasks and checking all the emails and putting out all the fires. And that helped me think like a CEO pretty much from the very beginning. I gave myself permission to have that space very early on. Over time, that evolved to taking all of Friday off. I would just take Fridays off completely. Now with COVID, we don't have domestic help. We have chosen not to send our children back to school. So our kids are with us 24/7. We have no childcare whatsoever at this point in time. So what's interesting about this is that it has changed my work hours. I actually work fewer hours now. Typically, I will work between 20 to 25 hours per week, 5 hours a day, roughly. And it's not like every single day is exactly the same. Some days I work very little. I'll only work 2 hours. And some days I will have like a 7-hour block. Does that make sense? So the way we do it to kind of balance, because both Pat and I work from home, and we work in the same company, which also has its benefits, but also its cons, is that when I'm working, full on working, Pat needs to be with the kids. And then when he's working full on, I need to be with the kids. So when I'm with my children, I typically will put my phone on airplane mode so that I'm not distracted. I have my watch set to like nothing so that I'm not in 3 places at the same time, because that really drains my energy to the point where then when I come back to work, I still don't have any energy left because I'm recuperating from being split in so many directions. So I'm really kind of, I'm like really kind of, I don't like doing that. So Pat, it drives him a little bit crazy sometimes when he can't reach me. So he has a way that he will use the Find My iPhone alarm thing where he'll make my phone like bing when he needs to reach me. So one of the agreements that we have is if it's not an emergency and I'm with the kids, don't talk to me. Save it, put it in Slack, and I will come in and I'll look through all of the Slack notifications and then we'll talk about everything all at once. But if it is an emergency, then he'll like use the Find My iPhone alert. My phone will bing and then I will like pick up the phone and call him. So that's what I do. Oh, thank you, Renee. Renee just, you're so great, Renee. Thank you so much. She put both the links that I've been talking about, the Huffington Post article and the Entrepreneur article, in the comments here in the Messaging That Makes Money group. So that's awesome. So let me count how many of you want struggles, mindset. It's very evenly spaced. Come on, someone be a tiebreaker. Do you want to talk about my struggles? Do you want to talk about email? What do you want? Someone be a tiebreaker, please. Okay. All right. So what I was coming back to is now I work between 20 and 25 hours any given week. So I'm working fewer hours. Our revenue actually went up. And that shows me that we have figured out some serious good stuff, both in terms of hiring an amazing team and having the systems and processes to support us. As my hours went down, our revenue went up. That's a company that I would buy. That's a company that is solid. That's a company that isn't running off of the energy of one human being, which is always dangerous, right? Because what happens when you're sick? What happens when you're down? What happens when you've got other shit that you need to deal with? So what we've been very, very deliberate about is building systems to work with. Okay, email is the deal. Okay, cool. We're going to talk about email. So we've worked on building systems and processes where the load can be shared. Everybody is, and this is not, we're not perfect at this. Let me just tell you, okay, we're a young company. I'm a first-time CEO. I'm learning this as I go. Please don't get the impression that I'm like a genius at this. At least once a week, I'm like, wow, I suck as a leader. Like at least once a week, often multiple times a week. I read a lot of books around it. I've hired coaches for it. I'm constantly learning how to get better. I'm also fully aware of the fact that I like to lead from a different place than a lot of leadership people talk about. I don't want to build a dude like war room kind of company. I'm just not into that. I'm really interested in building an ecosystem. So a huge line of thought recently in our company that we've been thinking about is how do we share revenue with everybody who works for us? How do we give people pieces of the pie so that as we grow, they actually are seeing growth in their own bank accounts too, so that they're more incentivized to go all in and support the vision of the company and so on and so forth. So those are just some of the things that we do. All right. So question that you had for emails. So Dawn says, how did you develop your string of emails, content, and format? So this is what we teach in our program, quite frankly. This is what we teach in Impact with Influence. So I'm flattered that you all have that as a burning question, because it shows that we practice what we preach and we do it in a way that you guys all are like, tell me how to do that because I want to do that. That's us leading by example, is having a system that is sexy enough and good enough that you want to learn how to do this for yourself. So the very first thing that we do is obviously we get crystal clear. It's know thyself, know thy client, right? I have done years of work on this. This is exactly the specific process that we teach. We teach people how to hone in at both a tactical level, so like what does it look like on the surface, but also what are all the emotional patterns under the surface of where your ideal client is. I talk about, I gotta bring this up, like this is now legend. My keyboard pad, I always talk about the continuum. I've talked about this in other videos, so I'm not gonna get into this now. Again, go search the video section. There's some really good stuff in there. I talk about sort of figuring out where you are on the continuum now versus where your client is. There are going to be many people on that continuum that are your ideal clients. And this is a big thing that most people don't realize, and most avatar exercises never talk about. There are going to be plenty of people on that continuum that you have been, right, in your journey. There were times in my own journey. Remember the story I told you earlier, where I went and met an entrepreneur who's running a real business, profitable, multi-year, growing, etc. And I told her, no, I really want the growth, but I don't want to take any risk. I don't want to get into debt. I don't want to take any uncomfortable risk. I want to do this in a way that's comfortable to me. And she was like, yeah, love, like that is not gonna, if you can figure out how to do that, please actually call me and let me know, because I don't know how to do that. That does not make any sense to me. And I thought she was a bit of a bitch, quite frankly, at the time, but she was totally right? Like, and it's not just financial risk, it's about energetic risk. I didn't want to go all in on that. I was like, no, I want to get a grant. No, I want to like do all these things. Well, guess what? That business never went anywhere. And the reason for that, by the way, and this is important, the reason that didn't go anywhere was because it was not my life's purpose. I was not so driven that I was like, yeah, let me get a loan. Yeah, let me get into debt. Yeah, let me put this on my credit card or hire somebody or whatever the deal. I never felt that way about that business. I wanted it to be safe. I wanted people to give me money. I wanted people to make this comfortable for me. And I wanted to just go from it that way. And of course, that bombed. It never got beyond a certain phase. This business, I went all in from the beginning. So it wasn't like I was different. It was just that it was, first of all, it was the right thing. I went in on the right business. So thank you, subconscious, for protecting me and helping me do the right thing. And I also, so the reason I'm telling you this is that if I had spoken to even to me, if I today, Geeta, spoke to the Geeta of who was trying to run the sling business and tried to tell her, dude, you got to invest in getting coaching, and you're going to invest X amount of money, I'd have been like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like, I would never have done it. I, myself, same human, would never have done it because I was at a different point in my journey. I had a different mindset and I hadn't woken up to my purpose quite yet. So a huge part of this is knowing your own ideal client and where on the continuum you became your ideal client, not just you'd be good to work with or you have the same pain points, but like where you reach that moment of commitment to going for it, to making an investment of time, money, energy, everything, like all of those investments. When did you start investing? What were the string of events that led to you investing that way? If you don't have the answer to all of this, let me tell you, like my email system is pretty loosey-goosey. Like I write 4 broadcasts a week, and I love doing it. They're my carrot. It's like I have to get through talking to the bookkeeper or calling the accountant. I actually set up my tasks that I don't love doing. And then at the end of it is my block where I get to write my emails because I love doing it. So those of you who think that I outsource the emails or who writes your emails, I write my emails. I write our video scripts. I perform them. I do these lives. That's the last thing ever that I would ever outsource.
Can I ask a question? Maybe where do you take the inspiration for the email? How do you connect the content that you write about to connect it to your business? What's the magic sauce maybe behind that?
I love that. That's a great question. Thank you. Truthfully, I take it from my life. Like if who here is on my email list? Are you on my email list? You really should be. If you're not on my email list, you're missing out on 2 things. First, you're missing out on everything that I teach you. But the second thing is you're missing out on me showing you by example. I'm a huge believer in leading by example. I'm giving it to you. I'm showing you, not telling you what's there. So what I do typically is I get inspired by, if I do an epiphany session, I have like my notes here and I always write down things that you guys say. You are my inspiration. You tell me things where you're like, oh, I went and I did this and I was disappointed. I tried this other thing and it broke my heart. I, want to do this, but I can't because X, Y, Z. And then I take that information and I'm like, oh, that's so good. First, I sit with it and I'm like, where in my journey has I can feel the emotion of it. When I feel the emotion of it, I sit down and I write an email about that. When our clients share their wins in our private group or I also mine our group coaching calls. So often we'll have a theme, without planning, without anybody knowing it's going to happen, there will be a theme that emerges from our group because we are a collective consciousness. And then we'll dive deep into that theme of not enough time or not being worthy or having really tight energy around money or whatever those ahas are. And I've gotten now in our Facebook group, if you notice, Maria from our team has been sharing some of the ahas that we have on our group calls so that you can participate at least a little bit here in this free community. So because we're sharing these gigantic shifts that happen for our clients. They all think, oh, it's when I learned to write really great emails. It's when I learned to say what I do in this super compelling way. That's when my business is going to shift. No, your business is going to shift like this Facebook group shift when you commit to it energetically, when you remove the subconscious barriers that you have to being successful at it, when you release the limiting beliefs that have traditionally prevented you from taking the actions that are aligned with where you want to go. That's what that is. So I'm always thinking, I read children's books to my kids at night, and I'll have a book when I'm like, oh, this is so juicy. I totally see how this applies to the client work that we do. And I will turn that into an email. I will turn that into a video. That's how I do what we're doing. Maria is so awesome. I totally agree. Does that make sense at all? Does that answer your question? So it's not like, oh, I write 7 emails and they follow this path. It's not like, I actually don't have that kind of system. It's not that rigid. I don't thrive with that level of rigidity. I like things to be loose and flowing. I just need to have enough of a structure and enough of a framework that I understand what to do. So where I would not do well, and I don't know if any of you can relate to this, is where you're like, here's a content calendar of 30 ideas to put out in a month, and they're all different. And I'm like, I'm tired. I'm just like, I'm tired thinking about it. I don't know how to do that, because I'm like, what if I don't feel like writing that particular kind of idea today? You know me, I don't like to do shallow, right? I like to go deep. So I'm like, I have to go deep is what suggests itself. Deep requires that level of inspiration. So what we did, and this is something we teach in our mastery program, is that we teach a framework. So for broadcast emails, we have 3 types of emails that we teach. That's it. That's all. And 2 of them are very similar to each other anyway. So it's really just 2 types that we're teaching. And I rinse and repeat. If you notice, if you actually took all my emails and broke them down, you would see me repeating the same pattern over and over. The stories are all different. The specifics are different, but the format and what the overarching message, the take home moral of the story, blah, 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 all of that is always the same. And that's what we teach our clients. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. So let's see. Let me see if I have any other questions that I didn't get to. Jessica asks, I think that's the only one I haven't gotten to. Yeah. Jessica asks, how do you find the motivation and inspiration to get things moving? I have a hard time picking one group or program to focus on. Where do I start? This goes full circle back to the subconscious blocks exercise. Jessica, or anybody else who feels like you're like, I feel shiny object syndrome. I have all these different things that I want to work on. This is because you're not allowing, you never will have this feeling when you're absolutely crystal clear with what it is you really want to do. So if you're telling me that you're distracted or you're spread too thin or you don't know what the deal is, it's because deep down you're scared that if you pick the thing you really want to do, you will have FOMO, you will hurt yourself in some way, you will get to all of that. Yeah, Jessica, good. Go through all my emails. That's what you should be doing. Absolutely true. Yeah, look at this. Oh, Renee, that's so sweet. So Renee says in the comments, she says, I've totally pivoted my audience because of the time, effort, energy I've put into this group and the prompts that Geeta provides. Huge kudos to Renee. I just want to and there's a link on the group on your screen right now if you want to work with us and if you want support in doing what it is we do with you and teaching you how to connect deeply to your audience, move your own subconscious blocks out of the way so that you can put your work forth in the way that you were intended, that you were built for. If you want to run a business and a life that freaking rocks, where you'll get to a point where you have a team that supports your vision. You don't have to have all the answers at all times. You have smart, intelligent, committed people birthing it into reality right alongside with you. Like if you're wanting to get to that place, that's what we help you do. So find that link on your screen, apply to talk to somebody on my team, and we'll see if we're a good fit and if we can help you. And if not, we'll give you some resources. But in the meantime, I just want to give a huge shout out to Renee, because I kid you not, like Renee applied for an epiphany session. What was it, like 4 weeks ago, I want to say? 4 weeks, not more than that. I don't think it was much longer than that. You applied. We actually we canceled your call because we were like, Renee, based on what you've submitted here, we don't know how to do this. I can't see this offer working. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I was gentle, but I was clear, like, this is not going to work. And I was like, go to our Facebook group and use the free trainings. And you know what? Renee didn't do what 99% of people would do, which is to be like, oh, I'm rejected, or this didn't work, or shiny object syndrome, or buying some $297 courses or whatever the fuck. She was like, you know what? It's free, but I'm actually going to use it. That makes all the difference in the world. She did the subconscious blocks exercise. She saw all of her own blocks. She did it again and again and again. I mean, Reina has a similar story too. Like several of our clients have this story now, where you do the work makes you more ready to see what's already in front of you. Renee completely changed her offer. I mean, how good does it feel, Renee, to have an offer that is so deeply aligned with what you're meant to do, where all the pieces now finally fit together? You don't feel kind of like all over the place running after all these things that feel completely impossible. So if you're sick of people, of like coaches being like, yeah, totally, I will totally help you build that, even though it doesn't really make any sense, and you somehow deep down suspect it doesn't make any sense, do those exercises and help yourself have clarity. Like, this stuff works. You just have to use it. This is all Renee's story. It comes from the free content that is in our Facebook group before she even became a client. She just became a client, like literally this week. So if you're looking for a place that is actually going to support you, a community that is going to support you, content that actually works, not just on a strategic level where you're just going to end up having the same problems in a different flavor, well, you're in the right place. That's what Messaging That Makes Money is all about. So thank you so, so much for being with me today. I am done. It has been more than an hour today for Ask Me Anything. Would you guys like me to do another Ask Me Anything? Let me know. Maybe we can do this.
I'm on screen.
You're on screen.
I want to say
Yay.
bye
Okay,
to everyone.
great.
That's it. The music is playing. The music is playing. So I just want to say thank you for everyone. And it's kind of nerve-wracking to be here. So yeah, that's it.
We'll let it all hang out.
Exactly. All right, bumper.
Bye.